First of all, I'm just going to say that SmackDown, while it's not a perfect show, it is absolutely head and shoulders better than the shit and the garbage that we see on Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw, it's the same old shit, blah blah blah. The Roman agenda is fucking about to be in full effect over there. Meanwhile on SmackDown, we're getting fresh matchups, we're getting fresh storylines, we're seeing people like Kofi Kingston getting a shot and being put in big angles and big situations here, and I'm loving it. We're gonna get into that when we get to the main event area, but tonight's SmackDown, man, was a fantastic show, and it just goes to show you how much easier it is to digest a 2-hour wrestling show over trying to digest a 3-hour wrestling show, especially on a weekly basis. You know, if it was just a pay-per-view, 3 hours sometimes isn't so bad, but for Raw, it's terrible, and there's so much filler and all this other crap that we don't need, and that's why Raw's just been shit ever since, I don't know, what's it been now, 7 years, 2012, 13, I don't even remember how long it's been, 3 hours, but this just goes to show you that 2 hours is the way to go. And I'm not going to say that's why SmackDown was good tonight. SmackDown was good tonight because it was just overall good. Everything, pretty much from beginning to end, was pretty good. A few things here and there that was either boring or I didn't really care about, but for the most part, I enjoyed everything I seen tonight on SmackDown Live. Getting right into it, SmackDown started with Shane McMahon. He's out there, he's got his trophy in the ring. He starts bullying Greg Hamilton to introduce him correctly. Apparently Greg Hamilton wasn't introducing him with or with conviction of him being the best in the world, so he starts grabbing him by the face and mushing him and pie facing him, kind of like he did to Miz's father last night. And I guess that's Shane's new thing now, grabbing people's face and just kind of mushing it and pie facing them. I mean, it works. It's disrespectful as hell, so it works for him if they're trying to get him some heel heat. So this led into Shane cutting a promo, and he talks about how he was tired of people constantly asking him how he can get help, or how he can help them get ahead in life, and how he can help them with stocks or make more money or just whatever it is. And he said he was pretty much tired of it, and it all ended on Sunday at Fastlane with The Miz, and that's pretty much why he beat The Miz's ass. And he said how he loved how he beat The Miz's ass, and the last thing he seen was his father pretty much reaching out for him before he put him to sleep. It was a pretty good promo, man. Nothing I can really complain about here, man. Shane just feels way more comfortable as a heel than he does as a face. I've always personally seen Shane more as a heel. I mean, all the way back to his early heel days in the early 2000s when he was running around doing that diving running chair shot to The Rock that he always loved to do. All the way back to those days, man. Shane's just always been a more of a heel character. He's more entertaining as a heel. I mean, he was alright as a face, but I mean, let's be real, his face run was kind of running dry, and it's nice for a new change here for Mr. Shane O'Mac. But yeah, I mean, this is refreshing for Shane, and this storyline or this promo that he did was fantastic. You know, if you haven't seen it, then I would suggest you go back and watch it because it was pretty good. As he's leaving, this pretty much leads to a 8-man tag match coming up, and this is going to be a theme throughout the night. Tag team matches. We get an 8-man tag team match featuring the Hardys teaming with Aleister Black and Ricochet, taking on the League of Nations version 2. Consisting of Rusev, Nakamura, Sheamus, and Cesaro. And I know, yeah, they're not actually a League of Nations, but it just looked funny because they kept saying the international something. Fucking, or not Corey Graves, either one of the other goons on the commentary team kept talking about it, whether it was Tom Phillips or Byron Saxton, about the international something, because they're all from different countries. But this match was okay. I seen it coming from a mile away. From last week, what happened. They didn't really do too much in this match. It was a pretty good match for what it was. It started getting hectic towards the end, and then towards the end, right as it looked like maybe the faces were going to close in on the victory, the New Day came storming the ring, and they pretty much caused this match to either come to a no contest or disqualification, whatever you want to call it. They pretty much demolished all 4 teams, though they didn't really beat up that much on the faces. I think a couple shots on the Hardy Boys and on Ricochet and Black, but for the most part the faces were on the outside and they just kind of beat up on the heels. They delivered Trouble in Paradise and a Midnight Hour, I think, on the outside. This was great, man. New Day needs a more aggressive side to them. You know, I don't want to see no more of the fucking pancake throwing and all this bullshit with the unicorn horns. Seeing the New Day as a more serious team is definitely a pleasant sight compared to what we've been seeing. And yeah, man, I'm sure this is going to play a part later on in the night, though, as Kofi, what we were told is being given a WrestleMania chance by Vince. That's going to come later in the night, and you could just kind of tell that this is going to play a part in it, because, you know, coming out and interrupting matches and causing mayhem, obviously is not going to leave Vince McMahon all that happy. Next we get probably, I don't know if it was my favorite segment of the night or my second favorite. It's kind of tied between this, what we've seen here, and what we saw in the closing moments of SmackDown. We get Randy Orton coming out. He asks why people keep saying that this is the house that AJ Styles built, when way back in 2002 he was debuting here, making his in-ring debut here on SmackDown, and Styles was still wrestling for a hot dog in front of 12 people in high school gymnasiums. He also brought up how in 2004 AJ Styles was, you know, catching tans, or, you know, catching a tan with Dixie Carter while he was winning the World Heavyweight Championship, or being the youngest World Heavyweight Championship, or champion, Jesus Christ, I can't speak today, by defeating Vacant or the Air at SummerSlam 2004. And yeah, I know he didn't actually say that he beat Vacant or beat the Thin Air, but we all know that they're not going to mention that he beat Chris Benoit at SummerSlam in 2004, because that's just that's a foul word. Chris Benoit is not allowed to be said on WWE television. So he did mention that he did win the Mad Stone. He was the youngest world title. He also brought up 2005 when AJ Styles was, you know, wrestling in TNA still, and he was facing The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Then he goes on to say 2006 and all the way up to 2015 he's been here and he's always been a champion, and it took AJ Styles 15 years to get here. Then AJ Styles winds up coming out. By the way, Orton was like fired up during this whole promo, and it was fantastic. Like, I haven't seen Orton this fired up in honestly quite some time, so it was refreshing to see. This is the side of Orton that I want to see more often. You know, just you could just tell he wants to be in this angle. Like, this is something that interests him. He's not bored with it. So I think this is going to make for a great match at WrestleMania. Anyway, Styles comes out and talks about how, for someone who looks down on the indies, Orton has sure followed his career since the beginning, and also mentions how Orton has had a lot of help during his entire WWE career. He brought up Evolution, he brought up the Legacy, he brought up Rated RKO, and he also brought up the Wyatts. And looking back at it, yeah, you know, Orton has had a lot of help, so this was a nice little comeback zinger for AJ Styles to put on Orton after Orton pretty much lashed out at him for what he said. What happened next here? Sorry, I lost myself in my notes. So this pretty much just goes back and forth for a minute, and then it pretty much ends with Orton telling Styles that as long as he's staying in a room in Orton's house, because earlier he did say that this is the house actually that Randy Orton built, and he actually got a pretty good pop for it, because I mean, you can't really deny the facts that he was saying. I mean, he's been here since 2002, and SmackDown was Randy Orton's show for quite some time. So you can't really fault him on that, man. I mean, he ain't lying. Anyway, he says that as long as Styles is staying in a room in Orton's house, that the rent is due, you son of a bitch. This is, I don't remember exactly how he said it, but the way he said it was fucking fantastic. Got a nice reaction out of the crowd. Seen a lot more swearing lately, and I'm not saying that they need a whole lot of swearing to be good, but I mean, it does add to the overall feel of a promo or a rivalry when you add a little bit of freaking foul language in there. It just adds a little bit of realism. Not everybody's going to just sit there and speak proper. Some people are going to curse when they're pissed off. So it does add to it. And then he says that AJ Styles can make the checkout for the rent. He can make the checkout to the most destructive three letters in sports entertainment. That is RKO. Styles gets the last word here, I believe, by saying if he wants it, he can come take it. And he pretty much points to the WrestleMania sign. And that's pretty much telling us that, yeah, it's official that we're getting an AJ Styles and Randy Orton match at WrestleMania. And honestly, I think it is a definite potential show stealer for sure. Orton and Styles at WrestleMania, yeah, sign me up and take my money. Especially the way this is going so far. I mean, this promo was great. It did exactly what it needed to do. It got you hyped for their match at Mania. It set everything up perfectly. And we'll see where it goes from here, As long as they don't do anything stupid between now and Mania, which I can't see how they can. There's only like 2 or 3 Smackdowns left. So we'll see where it goes. But this is probably both men's best promos in a long time, if not both of their best promos in their entire WWE runs. I mean, even Orton. I mean, he's had some decent promos on his day, but I mean, this one, he was just like on fire. Yeah, he had a couple slip-ups here and there where he tripped on his own words, but for the most part, this promo was fucking fire, man. It got me hyped up for their match, and we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. We get away from that, and we get probably something that was probably the weakest moment of the night. We got Asuka versus Sonya Deville. Nothing really all that great in the match. Pretty basic match, and they pretty much just did a role reversal from Fastlane, where instead of Sonya Deville costing Mandy Rose the match, Mandy Rose kind of cost Sonya Deville the match by kind of making her slip up on the ring skirt, which Mandy Rose kind of pulled. It looked awful, honestly. It didn't look good at all. It looked so cheesy, and the crowd didn't really react to it. And then Asuka pretty much locks in the Asuka lock and gets the victory over Sonya Deville. Yeah, and at this point, this is where I started realizing I mean, not that it's the first time I realized, but it's just, as you're watching, you just realize how much better SmackDown is than Raw. Everything was flowing so nicely at this point. Everything was just, transitioning perfectly between segments here, and it just kept your attention. I mean, this was probably the slowest part, was this match, but I kind of blame that on WWE, because I don't know what you do with the SmackDown Women's Championship going into WrestleMania, because I mean, who are they going to put up against her? Lacey Evans? No, thank you. Thank God, by the way, we did not get a fucking Lacey Evans come down the ramp and wave at everybody again. Thank the heavens we didn't see that, because if we would have seen that, I was going off. But I'm so sick and tired of seeing her. I don't even want to see her debut, period. Never mind possibly have a women's title match at WrestleMania. And Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose are pretty much out of the question. Naomi hasn't done shit. And I can't even think of any other women on the show. So I don't know what they do for the SmackDown Women's title. Maybe they call somebody up. I really don't know. It should be Charlotte. This should be Asuka and Charlotte number 2, with Asuka most likely getting her win back. But that's not what we're gonna see. So I don't know what we do. If you have an idea for the SmackDown Women's Championship that could be interesting, please let me know in the comments, because right now I can't think of anything. Speaking of the women, next we get Becky Lynch coming out. We get a highlight package showing Fastlane and Raw and what Ronda Rousey said, and how she pretty much ensured that Becky Lynch would be in the match by getting Charlotte disqualified at Fastlane. Which, by the way, Fastlane, I didn't do a Fastlane review because I just wasn't feeling that good, but in my honest opinion, aside from the 2 matches, the WWE Championship match and the United States Championship match, the fucking show was terrible. And I would have gave it like maybe a 5 out of 10, just because those 2 matches are pretty good, but otherwise the show was terrible. And as far as last night's Raw, since I said I was going to give these shows rankings and I keep forgetting, last night Raw is going to get a 3 out of 10, man. It was a terrible show, did not care, but we already went through that. But if I had to give it a rating last night, it would have been 3 out of 10. Anyway, getting away from Raw, because we don't want to hear all this negative shit about Monday nights, because it's terrible. We get Becky. Also, when Becky Lynch came out, she threw the crutch to the side, so finally, no more crutch. Thank God, because I was tired of looking at it, and I think the whole knee thing was a bit overplayed. But at least it's over now. So she comes out. She talks about how she played Ronda like a fiddle, so that she would do her bidding for her. Obviously referencing Sunday when she came in and got Charlotte disqualified. Says you don't know how hard it is to play mind games with somebody who doesn't have a brain. Charlotte then comes out and says to Becky that, yeah, it's easy to be hot for 6 months, but it's not that easy to be hot for as long as I have, and saying how she's been hot for 4 years. And I don't know if I'd say all that. It's not really that Charlotte's been hot. It's just that it's pretty easy to stay relevant when you're put in basically every main women's angle that there is, while others just have to take a back seat, unless it's the one person that Charlotte's going to be involved with. But for the most part, Charlotte's just gifted all these big women's opportunities. Every time there's a big angle, Charlotte's got to be in it. First main event, it's got to be Charlotte. First this, it's got to be Charlotte. It's a little sickening. So, I think the only thing that Charlotte wasn't in that was the first was the cage match, and that was between Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss, and I'm sure most of you have forgotten about that, which took place on SmackDown. Anyway, continuing on here. Becky Lynch pretty much then says how Charlotte has had a stranglehold on the women's division, which she has. Absolutely, she's the Roman Reigns of the women's division, and that she did nothing with it, which she hasn't, really. And then she mentions how that she just came along and is finally getting her shot in the women's division, and poof, just like that, they're getting a main event at WrestleMania, and really, I can't argue with that. Charlotte's had a stranglehold on the division, and nothing much has come from it. It's been somewhat lackluster, but now that Becky's involved, we got the women in the main event at WrestleMania. The women are pretty much the main focal point of the shows, and they've been pretty much the most interesting thing going in to WrestleMania. Anyway, that pretty much ends that. Next up, we get Daniel Bryan and Rowan. They're in the back. They were just seen coming out of Vince's office, and they're approached by Dasha Fuentes. And Bryan says that they spoke about, they had a conversation there, and Fuentes is being all nosy, asking what they spoke about. They spoke about Kofi. Daniel Bryan says, yeah, we did speak about Kofi, and that he gave Vince an honest opinion of Kofi. And Fuentes asks how Vince reacted to this, and Bryan says, well, he put me and Rowan in a tag match against Owen and Mustafa Ali. He didn't look happy, but I don't know. It just looked like, just like he was trying to give the impression that Vince was punishing him for saying whatever he said about Kofi. We'll find out what he said later on in the night, because it is brought to our attention. Next up, we got Rey Mysterio coming out. He's teaming with R-Truth and Andrade Cien Almas and Samoa Joe. And I told you this was the theme of tonight. It was a lot of tag team matches, aside from the one singles match. Everything else is pretty much tag team. I'm not going to lie. These four men have brought some much-needed prestige back to this dead championship and this dead mid-card division. I'm actually highly invested. Honestly, I really am invested in what the mid-card is doing on SmackDown. Even the interactions between like Carmella and Zelina Vega, that when they tangle on the outside during matches, have gotten nice reactions from the crowd. This wasn't a bad match. Like I said, the mid-card has been kind of picking up the slack here. The United States title looks like it means something. The mid-card is flourishing right now on SmackDown. It was a quick match, but it did again what it needed to do. It built more interest and intrigue to the mid-card, and brought more eyeballs to the United States Championship. Mysterio gets the victory here. He rolls up Samoa Joe for the 3 count. After the match, Joe hits a Uranagi on Truth and Almas. And I still don't understand why they're calling him Andrade. There's no reason to change his name. It's really not that hard to say Andrade Cien Almas. It's really not that hard. I think it's honestly harder in the beginning to say Shinsuke Nakamura. But that's just me. What do I know about anything, right? I'm just some asshole who makes reviews on YouTube thinking he knows everything. Anyway, moving on, because I want to get through this. I don't want to be here all night. Give you guys the quick rundown and everything and what I thought about it, and so far it's been a pretty good show. Next we get reminded that Alexa Bliss is hosting WrestleMania. Again, I still don't care. I don't know why it's needed. Maybe they'll plan something entertaining with her being the host, but I highly doubt it, but we'll see what happens. I always give it a chance. even when I shit on it, I'm still gonna give it a chance and hope that it's something entertaining, because I am at the end of the day, I'm a fan, and I want to be entertained. I don't want to have to come on here and complain. I really fucking don't, man. I can't even tell you how tired I am of complaining, even though you guys haven't been hearing it that long. If you go ask my friends, like Ryan, shouting you out, brother. You just ask him, and he'll tell you how long I've been complaining about this show. I've been complaining about it ever since like 2013, and just how bad it's been, or just the product in general, and how bad it's been. Smackdown was just terrible because it was just basically a Raw repeat until the draft happened. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I don't want to get into a long-winded ramble. That'll be for another video one day. Maybe I'll just go over something in a random rant. But next we got Owens and Mustafa Ali versus Bryan and Rowan. Like I said, very tag team happy tonight. I mean, somewhere Teddy Long is smiling playa. That's all I gotta say. He's got a smile on his face sitting back at his home watching Smackdown. And you know, like I said, I'm not gonna complain much about it because they all did what they needed to do. This has been an entertaining episode of Smackdown up to this point. And I will say that as far as entrances go, Mustafa Ali's entrance is pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie, with the, you know, the lights on his mask and the lights on his gloves, and he sticks his hand out with the circle and everything. It's a pretty sweet entrance. I think over time this guy's gonna be a big player, and you know, the sky's the limit for him as long as, you know, he doesn't squander it or he doesn't have the machine hold him down. Let's see here. Where do we leave off at? And also, like with Eric Rowan, yeah, his in-ring is not the best, but something that he does every week is he's wearing a new t-shirt that usually has some kind of metal band on it. This one on the back it said "Metal is Religion." You know, a lot of people don't even realize that he's wearing these shirts, and he literally wears a different one every week. And for people that do pick up on it, I mean, it's cool. It's something that adds to his character. He's just always has something new on. And I just wish that he would just kind of tweak his repertoire a little bit. I mean, aside from the Iron Claw, which apparently we're being told that his finisher is called, he doesn't really have much of a moveset aside from that. And he does that one flying like shoulder tackle elbow thing, and he does a big boot, and that's pretty much all he's got right now. So he just needs to work on that moveset, and boom, he'll be pretty decent as far as the character goes. Where do we leave off here? Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, I don't know what the hell's going on. This freaking iPhone's acting up. Yeah, nothing crazy in this match either. It was a pretty bare bones match. Rowan does get the win for his team. He hits, or Daniel Bryan gets thrown in the corner. Rowan tags in. Mustafa Ali goes to do a springboard thinking he's going to hit Bryan. Instead it's Rowan. He catches him, gives him the Iron Claw, chokeslam looking move, and gets the 3 count. And that was that. And then as they're walking up the ramp, we quickly transition into Vince coming out. We go to commercial, we come back. He says that he has an offer for Kofi to be at WrestleMania and challenge for the WWE Championship. We get a recap of what happened at Fastlane. Vince then says that we need to listen more closely to what he actually says, because he never actually said that Kofi would be in the championship match at Fastlane. I mean, I tend to disagree, because his exact words were, the WWE Championship match is going to be a triple threat match, and Kofi, that match is right now, so get out there. So basically, you were saying the WWE Championship match is right now, and to get out there. So from what I'm seeing, if I was Kofi or anybody with a fucking brain, it was pretty much saying that Kofi was in the match, and they just changed it on the fly. So Vince can eat a dick for that spot, because yes, you did say that basically he would be in the match, and then you took it away. So that part was the only part I really had a problem with. The rest of it wasn't bad at all. We had the New Day come out and interrupt. They say how Kofi deserves more than what he's getting, and how he's been here for 11 years and he's busted his ass and he's always done what he's been told to do, and talking about how they've done everything that they've been asked, including flying all the way over to India last week to help promote over there. Then Vince tells them to watch their mouths as they start getting loud with them. Big E and Xavier Woods said, no, we're not watching our mouths anymore. We're not going to be careful of what we say. We're going to say pretty much whatever we want and whatever on our mind. Kofi then grabs the mic or Vince says that, because they were saying that Kofi deserves a title match and whatnot. Vince says that nobody deserves anything, including himself, and he's the one that created all of this. And they pretty much say how this is bigger than all of it. It's even bigger than Vince's ego. Vince says that nothing is bigger than his ego. Gets a laugh. People laughed. I guess it was kind of funny. Next, Kofi grabs the mic. And, well, actually, before that, Vince, the last thing he said was pretty much that he's the older guy in the group, and he's got these two young guys with him, and he's pretty much saying that he's using the New Day to get where he's at, and that one day he'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame, but the only way he'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame is in the group with the New Day, pretty much saying he won't be added to the inducted into the Hall of Fame on his own. And this kind of got under Kofi's skin a little bit. He grabs the mic, says how long he's been here, and damn it, again, hold on, one last thing before Kofi actually grabbed the microphone. I'm sorry, guys. I got a lot written here, and it's kind of small, and I'm kind of standing far away from my phone. The last thing Vince said was that him and Kofi, or him and Bryan, had a discussion in the back that we saw earlier, and this is where we get what they talked about. And he said that he asked Daniel Bryan for his opinion on Kofi Kingston and what he thought about him. And Daniel Bryan said that Kofi Kingston is great, but he's really just a really good B+ player. Of course, this is referencing exactly what Daniel Bryan went through with the whole authority thing back in 2014, leading up to WrestleMania 30, where he defeated Orton and Batista at WrestleMania. And Triple H and Stephanie kept saying he's a B+ player, blah, blah, blah. So I can appreciate this. At the same time, it doesn't kind of make sense. Because Daniel Bryan complained for all that time about how he's not a B+ player and the authority keeping him down, and then here he is kind of doing it to Kofi. But at the same time, it's going to add some fuel to the fire here. So now finally Kofi grabs the mic, talks about how he's never complained about anything as far as his whole entire career, and he's never complained about anything like how he's missed time with his family and friends. Talks about how he's never been trick-or-treating with his kids, and says his youngest son just lost his first tooth, and he wasn't there to see that joy on his face when he discovered the money under the pillow with his first experience with the Tooth Fairy. I mean, this is all very personal, so it was kind of, it adds to the story. Kofi does a good job here of selling it over in this promo, selling everything that he's saying. He says he's not going to start complaining now, and basically he just wants to know from Vince himself what he has to do in order to get his one shot at the WWE Championship. Out of nowhere, Orton's music hits, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, holy shit, they're actually going to play off a feud from 2009 that was supposed to springboard Kofi to the main event scene, but nothing ever came to be from it, so I thought maybe they were going to look back on it, but no. They're going to take it a step further. Vince says all you have to do is beat Orton in a match, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. But then Joe's music hits, and Vince says, oh yeah, and you got to beat him as well. This is followed by the Bar, and then Eric Rowan coming out, and he says, now you have to defeat all of these men in a gauntlet match next week. And if you do so, you will pretty much stamp your place at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship against Daniel Bryan. So these 5 men then rush the ring. The New Day is actually able to fend them off. I thought the New Day was going to take a beat down here, but they didn't. They fended them off. Pretty much ended with Kofi hitting a Trouble in Paradise and Cesaro, and then he gets on the middle rope and starts yelling at Daniel Bryan and says how this is going to be you, pretty much at WrestleMania, and the show fades to black, and that was your SmackDown live episode this weekend. I can see next week each opponent being defeated due to some outside fuckery. Like when he's going against Orton, I can see Styles coming out and screwing Orton and making him lose. I can see Mysterio screwing over Samoa Joe or one of the other two guys, whether it be Almas or R-Truth, since they both got attacked after the match. And then I can see Aleister Black and Ricochet or the Hardys pretty much screwing over the Bar. And then when it comes down to just Kofi versus Rowan, I can see the New Day coming out and fending off Bryan, and then Kofi probably hits Trouble in Paradise out of nowhere on Rowan for the win. I don't know if it's exactly going to happen in this order, but I can see all of this happening, and I can see Kofi, you know, getting that, you know, much needed help regardless, because a 5-on-1 gauntlet match is kind of, you know, unfair and bullshit. But I can see all of this happening for Kofi in order for him to win. I don't see him losing next week. I mean, could it happen? Yeah, and they can find another way, but I see Kofi winning next week, and I see him doing it pretty much the way I just laid it out, with interference coming from opponents of those other guys that are in the match at WrestleMania. So we'll see what happens. This was a fantastic episode of Smackdown, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't really fast forward through anything except for the commercials, and it kept my interest throughout the entire 2-hour show. So props to WWE tonight. They did a good job. If I had to give this show a rating, it would be a solid 7 out of 10 for SmackDown tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments. If you didn't, let me know why you didn't enjoy it. I thought it was great. It did everything it needed to do in order to build towards WrestleMania. This is the first time I felt like there's a WrestleMania coming, because when you watch Monday Night Raw, it doesn't feel like WrestleMania season, man. It feels like fucking, I don't even know, man. Extreme Rules or No Mercy or some other shitty B-level pay-per-view. But tonight we actually got a little bit of a feeling that WrestleMania is looming in the near future. But that's all I got for you guys tonight. I'm gonna get out of here. Hit that thumbs up if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you want more. And yeah, man, I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys have a good night. Peace out.